Impossible Civilization's official history is a straight line. It begins in caves, moves through agriculture, then cities, empires, revolutions, and finally us. It's a comfortable narrative, progressive, Darwinian, but that line is built on silence. And those silences, Diego, are the true protagonists of this journey. Today, we walk the margins, the corridors that don't appear in textbooks, the civilizations that contradict the official story, the cultures that knew too much, too early, the architects of forgetting. Göbekli Tepe, the temple that shouldn't exist in southeastern Turkey, buried beneath centuries of soil and silence, lies Göbekli Tepe, a complex of megaliths carved with precision, aligned to celestial bodies, adorned with symbols we still don't understand. Its beauty is striking, but its age is what defies logic. Göbekli Tepe was built over 11,000 years ago, before agriculture, before cities, before the wheel. According to school books, humans at that time were primitive hunter-gatherers. So how did they construct temples with advanced engineering, without metallurgy, without writing, without settled life? The official answer is silence. Göbekli Tepe doesn't fit. It's an anachronism, a glitch in the timeline. That's why it was buried literally. Its builders covered it with earth, as if they knew its existence would be dangerous. As if they were protecting it from the future. Mohenjo-Daro, the city without graves in the Indus Valley, in what is now Pakistan, flourished a civilization that defies conventional logic, the Harappan culture. Its most famous city, Mohenjo-Daro, had paved streets, underground sewage systems, urban planning, and standardized architecture. All of this over 4,500 years ago. But what puzzles archaeologists isn't its sophistication, it's the absence of violence. No defensive walls, no weapons, no royal tombs. No signs of kings, armies, or slavery. How could such an advanced society exist without hierarchy, warfare, or cults of power? Some researchers suggest Mohenjo-Daro was egalitarian, built on principles we'd now call utopian. Others claim it was destroyed by an ancient nuclear blast, citing anomalous radiation levels and skeletons with burn marks. The official narrative dismisses both, but offers no convincing alternative. The Olmecs, African faces in ancient America long before the Maya and Aztecs, deep in the jungles of Mesoamerica, lived the Olmecs. Their legacy includes colossal stone heads, some over 3 meters tall, carved with uncanny precision. But it's not their size that stirs controversy, it's their features. The Olmec heads bear distinctly African traits: broad noses, full lips, rounded skulls. How could a pre-Columbian American culture depict African faces thousands of years before transatlantic contact? Mainstream scholars call it stylistic coincidence. But others propose that the Olmecs had contact with Africa long before Columbus. That ancient transoceanic voyages occurred. That the history of the Americas is older and more entangled than we've been taught. The Dogon, astronomers without telescopes in Mali, West Africa. The Dogon people are known for their art, music, and cosmology. But what sets them apart is their astronomical knowledge. The Dogon knew about Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, long before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. How could a non-technological culture know the orbital period of Sirius B 50 years, or its extreme density? How did they describe a binary star system with such precision? The official explanation is that anthropologists told them. But the Dogon insist their knowledge came from the Namo, amphibious beings who descended from the sky in a spinning vessel. Myth, memory, contact, Sumeria, the origin of everything or something else. Sumerian civilization is credited with inventing writing, law, astronomy, and architecture. But their texts tell a story that contradicts the school book version. According to the Sumerians, they didn't invent anything. Everything was taught to them by the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens. Their cuneiform tablets speak of genetic engineering, celestial wars, star maps, and precise calendars. They describe a history that begins long before 3000 BCE, a history that reads like science fiction. Academia calls it mythology. But what happens when myth describes astronomical phenomena, geological cycles, and social structures that shouldn't exist in that era? The official narrative would like you to believe that humans progress linearly from primitive tribes into sophisticated societies to the modern era of innovation. This story comforts us because it makes us exceptional. We are the pinnacle of evolution, the high achievers of a meaningless universe, But what if this comforting lie? What if there are traces of sophistication hidden in prehistory, evidence of technologies that should not exist? Well, today we're diving into 5 historical oddities that shake the foundations of our understanding. We will examine the details of each discovery and how they challenge conventional timelines. You will have the chance to decide whether these anomalies are merely misunderstood relics or hints at a much more complex past. Are we really as advanced as we think? Let's find out. Number 5. The Baghdad Battery. The year was 1938. The place, a dusty excavation site near Baghdad. The discovery, 3 clay jars dating back nearly to millennia. Inside one of these jars, researchers found a copper cylinder with a hole in the center, nestled next to an iron rod. The most remarkable part, these components worked as a battery when reassembled. Electrologists were astonished. There was no doubt that this was a functional galvanic cell, a rudimentary battery. But why would an ancient civilization need such a device? The discovery didn't fit within the neat narrative of human progress that historians had crafted. To incorporate this anomaly into the timeline, some scholars suggested that it might have been used for electroplating metals. This theory seemed plausible since ancient cultures were known for their skill in metalwork. Others suggested that the battery was used for medical treatments, perhaps in conjunction with a primitive form of acupuncture. After all, electric currents are still used today to stimulate nerves and alleviate pain. However, this explanation raises more questions than it answers. Why would a simple battery be needed for therapeutic purposes? Moreover, how did people living thousands of years ago understand the properties of electricity? The idea that ancient civilizations understood electricity seems far-fetched given the significant technological leaps required to harness it. Despite the various theories, mainstream archaeologists remain skeptical. They reject the notion that the Baghdad Battery was ever used for its intended purpose. Instead, they argue that its design was purely accidental, a random assortment of items that just happened to resemble a battery. But could it be possible that a civilization developed an understanding of electricity long before it was rediscovered in the modern era? Did the Baghdad Battery serve as a testament to a long-forgotten technological era? Or is it merely a curiosity that defies easy explanation? No. 4. The Pyrrhus Map. Admiral Piri Reis created a nautical chart in 1513, which includes South American coastal outlines. It puzzled cartographers because the continents looked oddly accurate. This is because the continents shown on the map seem to align perfectly with modern maps, yet it predates European exploration of the Americas by about 100 years. On the other hand, the Antarctic coast is depicted without any ice sheet, which aligns with modern satellite imagery of the continent. This wouldn't have been possible unless he had access to modern technologies used to map Antarctica. He claimed his sources included ancient maps, suggesting a lost civilization that explored and charted these lands. But the conventional view argues that these features are coincidences, which means either the map is a forgery or modern scientific understanding is wrong. This conflicts with Piri Reis's reputation as a skilled cartographer, as well as independent verification of the map's age through carbon dating. Other explanations include Piri Reis copying from a now-lost Portuguese map showing South America and Antarctica. However, this doesn't address the discrepancy between the map's age and its content. A compelling theory suggests ancient astronaut intervention, which aligns with other ancient depictions of visitors from the sky. But there isn't enough proof for this theory yet. As we dig deeper into history, we uncover more inconsistencies, leading us to question the validity of traditional accounts. What does the Pyrrhus map imply about the limits of our historical knowledge? Could it be that there are aspects of our past that we are not meant to uncover? No. 3. The Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek device discovered in a sunken Roman-era ship near the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901. It is generally accepted that the mechanism was constructed in the Hellenistic period, probably around the turn of the millennium BCE. This date makes it one of the oldest known examples of sophisticated technology. Archaeologists determined that it was an analog computer used for astronomical calculations. It could calculate astronomical positions and eclipses with great accuracy. Its complexity is staggering. The device consists of at least 30 bronze gears arranged on several rotating axles. These gears are connected to a series of dials and pointers that display information related to astronomical phenomena. The sheer complexity of the Antikythera mechanism suggests an advanced level of engineering and technological know-how. It is hard to fathom that such a sophisticated device could have been created without the aid of modern tools and technology. Its discovery posed a significant challenge to traditional views about the capabilities of ancient civilizations. Historians had assumed that ancient societies lacked the knowledge and skills to create such a complex device. However, the Antikythera mechanism proved them wrong. It revealed that ancient civilizations possessed a level of technological sophistication that far exceeded what was previously believed to be possible. Researchers continue to analyze and study the Antikythera mechanism in an attempt to fully understand its capabilities and purpose. New discoveries are still being made about the device, keeping alive the wonder and mystery surrounding its creation and use. Number 2. Pumapunku. The enigma deepens with Pumapunku, a site near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia that contains large blocks of stone fitted together in a way that is both fascinating and perplexing. These stones are not your typical ancient ruins. They are intricately cut and shaped with an astonishing level of precision. Weighing up to 130 tons, these gigantic blocks don't just lie haphazardly in piles. They are fitted together with such precision that they form a seamless puzzle-like structure. The corners and edges are so finely cut that even a razor blade cannot be inserted between them. This level of craftsmanship is truly remarkable considering that it was allegedly done with primitive stone tools. The official explanation that Pumapunku's builders used copper chisels and wooden hammers to cut and shape the stones simply doesn't hold up. The precision and scale of the work defy belief when we consider the rudimentary tools supposedly used. Pumapunku challenges our understanding of ancient cultures. It raises uncomfortable questions about what we think ancient civilizations were capable of. Did these cultures possess technology far more advanced than we give them credit for? How else can we explain the construction of such an impressive site? With methods that are so precise, Pumapunku is not just an archaeological site. It's a testament to the ingenuity and skill of ancient builders. It forces us to reconsider what we think we know about human history and to acknowledge the incredible achievements of past civilizations. Number 1. Ancient nuclear shadows. The discovery of skeletons with elevated levels of radiation at the Indus Valley site of Mohenjo-daro has left scientists baffled. It seems as though these ancient people were literally wiped out by radiation, with some collapsing mid-stride as if struck by sudden illness. This enigmatic discovery poses a serious challenge to our conventional understanding of human history. One particularly puzzling aspect of this site is the presence of skeletons found lying in the streets, suggesting that the inhabitants were caught off guard by whatever force ultimately befell them. The fact that the bones show signs of severe radiation exposure points to a catastrophic event unlike anything seen in recorded history. Now, while the conventional narrative dismisses these findings as inconclusive, it's hard to ignore the implications. What if ancient civilizations had access to nuclear technology long before we thought possible? Could these skeletal remains be evidence of an ancient nuclear holocaust? It's a chilling thought, but one that fits the descriptions found in ancient Vedic texts. The possibility that humans harnessed nuclear power thousands of years ago is a tantalizing idea, one that could rewrite history as we know it. We've journeyed through 5 historical anomalies that challenge the boundaries of what we once thought possible. From the Baghdad Battery to the eerie silence surrounding Pumapunku, each site leaves us with more questions than answers. What do you think? Do these artifacts point to a lost golden age, a time when humans may have been more advanced than we realize? Or are they merely curiosities, misunderstood relics of a more innocent past? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Your voice matters, and your insights could be the spark that ignites a new perspective. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay connected to our future explorations. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history's hidden mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking the truth. And remember, sometimes the past is never as buried as we think. The pattern of forgetting history is not only about what happened. It is about what is remembered and what is deliberately erased. Every civilization leaves behind ruins, myths, and fragments. But the deeper pattern is not the rise and fall of empires, it is the rhythm of forgetting. A rhythm that repeats across cultures, across continents, across millennia. The Library of Alexandria. Knowledge in flames. The Library of Alexandria was said to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls, maps of unknown lands, treatises on medicine, astronomical records, and philosophies from across the ancient world. Its destruction is one of history's great tragedies. But what if it wasn't an accident? What if the burning of the library was not a single event, but a series of purges? Each fire, each looting, each political upheaval erasing inconvenient knowledge. The official story frames it as a loss to time. But the pattern suggests something else, a systematic silencing of wisdom that challenged authority. The Mayan codices, erased by conquest. When the Spanish arrived in the Americas, they encountered the Maya masters of astronomy, mathematics, and cyclical time. The Maya recorded their knowledge in codices, folded books of bark paper filled with glyphs. Almost all were burned by missionaries, only for survive. Why destroy them? Because they contradicted the imposed narrative. The conquerors did not want a rival cosmology, a rival science, a rival history. The codices were not lost, they were erased. And with them, an entire worldview was silenced. The Gnostic Gospels, buried in the desert in 1945, near Nag Hammadi in Egypt, a farmer discovered jars filled with ancient manuscripts. These were the Gnostic Gospels texts that presented a radically different vision of early Christianity. They spoke of inner divinity, of knowledge as liberation, of a Christ who taught self-realization rather than obedience. Why were they hidden? Because the early church declared them heresy. The official canon was enforced, and alternative voices were buried literally. For centuries, the Gnostic vision was forgotten, until chance unearthed it again. Another example of the pattern: memory suppressed, rediscovered, suppressed again. The palimpsest, writing over the past in monasteries across medieval Europe. Parchment was scarce. Old manuscripts were scraped clean and rewritten. Beneath the prayers and sermons, faint traces of older texts remain: mathematics, philosophy, astronomy. These are called palimpsests. The metaphor is powerful. History itself is a palimpsest. Each era writes over the last, erasing what it does not need, preserving only what serves its narrative. But the ghostly traces remain, waiting for those who know how to read between the lines. Cycles of amnesia. Why does forgetting repeat? Perhaps it is not only political, perhaps it is structural. Civilizations rise, accumulate knowledge, then collapse. Floods, fires, wars, and plagues sweep away libraries, temples, and archives. Survivors rebuild, but the chain of memory is broken. Yet myths of lost golden ages persist: Atlantis, Lemuria, the four worlds of the Hopi, the Yugas of India. Each culture remembers that something was lost. Each encodes the trauma of forgetting in story. The myth is not fantasy, it is memory disguised. Forgetting is control, but forgetting is not always accidental. It can be engineered. Empires rewrite history to justify conquest. Religions erase rival doctrines to maintain authority. Schools teach simplified narratives to produce obedient citizens. Forgetting becomes a tool of power. The pattern is clear. What empowers the individual is erased. What empowers the system is preserved. Knowledge of cycles, of inner divinity, of cosmic connection, these are silenced. Knowledge of hierarchy, obedience, and control, these are amplified. The right to remember. To study the pattern of forgetting is to reclaim the right to remember. To see the gaps, the silences, the erasures, and to ask why. To recognize that history is not a neutral record, but a battlefield of memory. The ruins of Göbekli Tepe, the codices of the Maya, the scrolls of Alexandria, the Gospels of Nag Hammadi, all are fragments of a larger truth. A truth that whispers, we have been here before. We have known more than we are allowed to know, and we can remember if we choose. Rebels erased from history. History, as it is taught, is a story of kings, generals, and empires. But beneath that official narrative lies another story, the story of those who resisted, who questioned, who dared to think differently. These rebels, heretics, and visionaries often paid the price of erasure. Their names were scratched out, their works burned, their legacies distorted. Yet their shadows remain, whispering from the margins. Hypatia of Alexandria. The philosopher torn apart in the 4th century CE, Alexandria was a crossroads of knowledge. At its heart was Hypatia, a mathematician, astronomer, and philosopher. She taught the heliocentric model of the cosmos, refined instruments of measurement, and embodied the intellectual freedom of the ancient world. But Hypatia lived in a time of rising dogma. Her brilliance threatened both political and religious authorities. In 415 CE, she was dragged from her chariot by a mob, stripped, and brutally murdered. Her writings were destroyed. For centuries, her name was nearly forgotten. Hypatia's death was not just the silencing of a woman, it was the silencing of an entire tradition of free inquiry. She became a symbol of how power fears knowledge. Giordano Bruno, The Infinite Universe in Renaissance Italy. Giordano Bruno dared to imagine a cosmos without boundaries. He taught that the universe was infinite, filled with countless suns and worlds. He believed divinity was immanent in all things, that truth could not be confined to dogma. For this, he was branded a heretic. In 1600, Bruno was burned alive in Rome. His works were banned, his ideas condemned. Yet centuries later, his vision of infinite worlds proved prophetic. Bruno's fate reveals the pattern. Those who expand the horizon are punished by those who guard the walls. The Cathars, a people erased in medieval France, the Cathars preached a radical faith. They rejected the corruption of the church, lived simply, and believed in a dualistic universe of light and darkness. They challenged authority not with armies, but with ideas. The response was brutal. In the 13th century, Pope Innocent III launched a crusade against them. Entire towns were massacred. Their books were burned. Their memory was nearly obliterated. The Cathars remind us that history is not only written by the victors, it is enforced by fire and sword. Women of science, hidden in plain sight. Throughout history, countless women contributed to science, philosophy, and art, only to be erased. From the unnamed female astronomers of Mesopotamia, to the women who worked alongside male geniuses but were denied credit, their stories form a hidden lineage. Consider Rosalind Franklin, whose X-ray images revealed the structure of DNA, yet whose name was overshadowed by Watson and Crick. Or Ada Lovelace, who envisioned the first computer algorithm in the 19th century, only to be dismissed as a mathematician's daughter. The erasure of women is not accidental, it is systemic. Their brilliance threatened the narrative of male dominance, so their names were buried, slave rebels, and forgotten revolutions. History celebrates emperors and generals, but rarely the enslaved who rose against them. The Haitian Revolution, led by Toussaint Louverture, was the first successful slave revolt in modern history. It shook the colonial world, proving that the oppressed could overthrow their masters. Yet in many textbooks, Haiti's revolution is a footnote. Why? Because it challenged the narrative of European superiority. Because it showed that freedom could be seized from below, not granted from above. The pattern is clear. When the powerless rise, their victories are minimized, their stories silenced. The pattern of erasure from Hypatia to Bruno, from the Cathars to forgotten women and rebels, the pattern repeats. Those who question authority, who imagine differently, who embody freedom are erased. Their names vanish, their works are destroyed, their legacies distorted. But erasure is never complete. Fragments survive. Myths persist, memory returns. The very act of suppression reveals the power of what was suppressed, the whisper of the forgotten. To study these rebels is to hear a whisper across time. Do not believe the official story. Do not accept the silence as truth. Remember us. Their erasure is a warning, but also an invitation. An invitation to reclaim the hidden lineage of resistance, to honor the voices that power tried to silence, and to recognize that forgetting is never final. Secret societies and invisible pacts history is not only shaped by armies and empires. Sometimes, it is shaped in shadows by groups that operate behind closed doors, weaving influence through symbols, rituals, and invisible agreements. These are the secret societies, the hidden networks, the invisible pacts that have haunted human imagination for centuries. Whether myth or reality, their presence in history is undeniable. The Freemasons, builders of symbols. The Freemasons emerged in medieval Europe, officially as guilds of stonemasons. But their legacy is far more than architecture. They became a brotherhood of symbols, rituals, and hidden knowledge. Their lodges spread across continents, attracting philosophers, scientists, and revolutionaries. The Masonic square and compass, the all-seeing eye, the unfinished pyramid. These symbols appear not only in lodges, but in national monuments, banknotes, and architecture. coincidence, or a subtle reminder that the builders of cathedrals also built the foundations of modern states. The official story paints them as harmless fraternities. But whispers persist that revolutions, constitutions, and even wars were guided by their hands. The Rosicrucians, keepers of hidden wisdom in the 17th century, mysterious manifestos appeared in Europe, signed by the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. They spoke of secret knowledge, alchemy, and a coming transformation of the world. The Rosicrucians claimed to guard ancient wisdom, blending science, mysticism, and philosophy. Were they real, or a literary invention? Historians debate. But their influence is clear. They inspired generations of thinkers, from scientists to occultists. Their promise of hidden knowledge, accessible only to the initiated, became a template for secret societies to come. The Illuminati, the myth that wouldn't die, founded in Bavaria in 1776, the Illuminati began as a small group of intellectuals seeking to challenge monarchy and church authority. They promoted reason, equality, and freedom of thought. Within a decade, they were outlawed. But their legend grew. Conspiracy theories claimed they survived underground, manipulating revolutions, governments, and economies. Today, the word Illuminati is shorthand for hidden elites controlling the world. Are they real? Or are they a mirror of our fear that power is never truly visible, that someone else always pulls the strings? The serpent brotherhoods. Across cultures, serpents appear as symbols of wisdom, power, and forbidden knowledge. From the Nagas of India to the Quetzalcoatl of Mesoamerica, from the Ouroboros of alchemy to the serpent in Eden, the motif repeats. Some traditions speak of hidden brotherhoods, keepers of serpent knowledge, guardians of secrets, too dangerous for the masses. Were these metaphors for esoteric wisdom, or hints of actual networks that preserved ancient sciences through the ages? Invisible pacts, the power behind thrones. Not all secret societies have names. Some are simply networks of influence, families, financiers, advisors who operate behind the scenes. History remembers kings and presidents, but rarely the invisible hands that guided them. Consider the Medici bankers of Renaissance Florence, whose wealth shaped art, politics, and religion. Or the shadowy advisors in royal courts, whose whispers changed the fate of nations. These were not official rulers, but their influence was real. The pattern is clear. Visible power is often a mask. Invisible pacts decide more than armies ever could. The pattern of secrecy. What unites Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, serpent brotherhoods, and invisible pacts is not their rituals or symbols, it is their secrecy. Secrecy itself is power, to know what others do not, to act unseen, to shape history without leaving fingerprints. Whether these groups were real or imagined, their myth endures because it reflects a truth. History is never fully transparent. There are always layers beneath the surface, always hands we cannot see. The invitation of the hidden to explore secret societies is not only to chase conspiracies. It is to recognize that power often hides itself. That symbols are not decoration, but language. That history has two versions, the one in textbooks and the one whispered in lodges, temples, and back rooms. The question is not whether secret societies exist. The question is, how much of our world has been shaped by them? And how much of our forgetting is their design? The hidden history of religion's religion is often presented as timeless, unchanging truth. Yet behind every sacred text lies a history of choices: what to include, what to exclude, what to burn, and what to call heresy. The story of religion is not only about faith, it is about power. And the greatest secrets are not the words we read, but the words we were never allowed to see. The lost books of the Bible, as we know it, is a curated collection. Dozens of Gospels, letters, and revelations were excluded from the canon. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Book of Enoch each offered a vision of spirituality that diverged from orthodoxy. Why were they excluded? Because they emphasized inner knowledge over external authority. They spoke of a divine spark within each person, a path to liberation without priests or institutions. Such ideas threatened the emerging hierarchy of the Church. So they were branded heresy, buried, or destroyed, but fragments survived. And when rediscovered, they revealed a Christianity far more diverse, mystical, and radical than the one taught in Sunday school, the hidden Torahs. Judaism, too, has its hidden texts. The Kabbalah, once forbidden to all but the most learned, describes a universe of emanations, divine sparks, and cosmic repair. It presents creation not as a single act, but as an ongoing process in which humans play a role. For centuries, rabbis restricted its study, fearing its power to destabilize orthodoxy. Yet whispers of the Kabbalah influenced Christian mystics, Renaissance magicians, and even modern physics. The hidden Torahs remind us that religion is not only law and ritual, it is also a map of consciousness. The pagan roots beneath the cross Christianity did not emerge in a vacuum. Its symbols, rituals, and festivals often echo older traditions. The cross resembles the Egyptian egg. Christmas aligns with the Roman Saturnalia and the solstice. Easter echoes fertility rites of spring. The official narrative frames these as coincidences or adaptations, but the pattern suggests something deeper, that religions absorb and overwrite what came before, layering new meanings over ancient symbols. The result is a palimpsest of belief, where pagan gods still whisper beneath Christian hymns. The suppressed feminine across cultures, the divine feminine was once central. Goddesses of fertility, wisdom, and creation were worshipped from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica. Yet in many traditions, the feminine was suppressed, demonized, or erased. Lilith, once a goddess of independence, became a demon in Jewish folklore. Mary Magdalene, once a disciple and perhaps a leader, was recast as a repentant sinner. The goddess Isis was absorbed into the Virgin Mary. The suppression of the feminine was not theological, it was political. To control society, power centralized the divine in a masculine image. But the fragments of the goddess remain, waiting to be remembered. The hidden verses of Islam, too, has its apocrypha. Early traditions speak of verses that were recited and later withdrawn, of interpretations suppressed by political rulers, of mystical paths marginalized by orthodoxy. Sufi poets like Rumi and Ibn Arabi described a God of love and unity, a vision that transcended law and dogma. Yet their works were often censored, their followers persecuted. The hidden history of Islam is not about violence, as stereotypes suggest. It is about mystical ecstasy, erased by those who feared its freedom, the pattern of suppression. From the Gnostic Gospels to the Kabbalah, from pagan roots to suppressed feminine archetypes, from Sufi mysticism to hidden verses, the pattern repeats. Religions are not static truths, they are curated narratives. What survives is what serves power. What is erased is what liberates the individual. The hidden history of religions is not about denying faith. It is about recognizing that faith has always been contested, edited, and rewritten. And that the greatest heresy is not disbelief, it is remembering what was meant to be forgotten, the invitation of the forbiddens. To read the forbiddens texts, to honor the suppressed voices, to see the pagan roots beneath the cross, is to reclaim a deeper spirituality. One that is not imposed from above, but discovered within. The hidden history of religions whispers, the divine is not confined to temples, churches, or mosques. It is in the silence, the symbols, the forgotten words. And to remember them is to break the spell of forgetting. The dark side of empires. History books often glorify empires as engines of progress, builders of roads, aqueducts, laws, and culture. But beneath the marble facades and golden crowns lies another story, one of conquest, blood, and silence. Empires do not rise by accident, they rise by consuming others. And the darker their brilliance, the deeper the shadows they cast. Rome, civilization through conquest. Rome is remembered for its law, architecture, and philosophy. But its empire was built on conquest and slavery. The Colosseum, symbol of Roman grandeur, was a theater of death where thousands of gladiators and animals were slaughtered for entertainment. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, was not peace at all, it was submission enforced by legions. Entire peoples were erased, the Carthaginians, the Dacians, the Gauls. Rome's greatness was measured in the silence of those it destroyed. The official narrative celebrates Rome as the cradle of Western civilization. But the truth is that its brilliance was inseparable from its brutality. Spain, gold, and blood in the New World. When Spain crossed the Atlantic, it claimed to bring Christianity and civilization. What it brought was conquest, disease, and enslavement. The Aztec and Inca empires, with their temples, astronomy, and vast cities, were dismantled in decades. Millions died not only from war, but from epidemics unleashed by contact. Gold and silver flowed into Europe, fueling its rise, while the Americas were left in ruins. The chronicles of the conquistadors speak of glory, the voices of the conquered were silenced. The age of discovery was, for those discovered, an age of devastation. Britain, the empire of trade and chains. The British Empire prided itself on trade, industry, and the spread of civilization. But its wealth was built on the backs of enslaved Africans, shipped across the Atlantic in chains. Plantations in the Caribbean and the Americas fueled Britain's rise, while millions suffered and died in the Middle Passage. Later, Britain's empire stretched across India, Africa, and Asia. Railways and schools were built, but always to serve imperial interests. Famines in India killed millions, while grain was exported to Britain. The empire's civilizing mission was a mask for extraction and control. The sun never set on the British Empire, but neither did the shadow of its crimes. The United States, empire without a name. The United States does not call itself an empire. Yet, its expansion across the continent was built on the displacement and extermination of native peoples. Its rise as a global power was fueled by slavery, segregation, and wars abroad. From the Philippines to Vietnam, from Latin America to the Middle East, U.S. interventions have left trails of destruction. Official narratives speak of freedom and democracy. But for those on the receiving end, it often meant occupation and exploitation. The American empire hides behind ideals. But its shadow is as real as any that came before. China, the empire of silence. China's dynasties built wonders: the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, vast bureaucracies. But they also enforced conformity through censorship, purges, and control. Dissenting philosophies were burned, scholars executed, histories rewritten. The empire's strength lay not only in armies, but in its ability to erase memory. Dynasties rose and fell, but the pattern of control remained. Even today, the legacy of centralized power and silenced voices echoes through its history. The pattern of empire: Rome, Spain, Britain, the United States, China. Different cultures, different eras, but the same pattern. Empires rise by conquest, extraction, and control. They justify themselves with myths of civilization, progress, or destiny. They erase the voices of the conquered, leaving only ruins and silence. The dark side of empires is not an exception, it is the rule. Civilization, as we know it, is built on bones. The invitation to see clearly, to study the dark side of empires, is not to deny their achievements. It is to see them whole, to recognize that progress and violence are intertwined, that the monuments of civilization are also monuments of forgetting. The question is not whether empires were great. The question is, at what cost, and who paid the price? The hidden history of empires whispers. Every empire calls itself eternal. Every empire believes it brings light, but in the end, all empires fall and the shadows remain. The hidden history of mind control history is not only about armies, empires, and monuments. It is also about the invisible battlefield of the mind. For as long as humans have lived in societies, rulers have sought not only to control bodies, but to shape beliefs, perceptions, and desires. The hidden history of mind control is the story of how power learns to colonize consciousness itself. Education as indoctrination. We are taught to see schools as neutral spaces of learning. But from ancient Sparta to modern nation-states, education has often been a tool of indoctrination. Sparta trained children to obey the state above all. Imperial China's civil service exams ensured loyalty to Confucian orthodoxy. In the 19th and 20th centuries, schools in colonial territories erased indigenous languages and histories, replacing them with the culture of the conqueror. The official narrative calls this civilization, but beneath it lies a subtler truth. Education can be a factory of obedience, producing citizens who think within the boundaries set by power. Propaganda, the art of manufactured consent. In the 20th century, propaganda became a science. Governments learned to use newspapers, radio, film, and later television to shape public opinion. During World War I, posters and speeches turned ordinary citizens into soldiers and enemies into monsters. In Nazi Germany, Joseph Goebbels perfected the art of repetition, spectacle, and fear. But propaganda did not end with dictatorships. Democracies, too, learned to manufacture consent. Advertising blurred into politics, news became entertainment. The line between information and manipulation dissolved. The battlefield of the mind expanded into every living room. Experiments in control, MK-Ultra in the 1950s and 60s, the CIA launched a secret program known as MK-Ultra. Its goal: to explore techniques of mind control. Experiments included hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and the administration of LSD, often without the subject's consent. Universities, hospitals, and prisons became laboratories of psychological manipulation. The program was officially shut down in the 1970s, and many documents were destroyed. But the fragments that remain reveal a chilling truth: governments were willing to experiment on their own citizens in the pursuit of control. The line between science and violation was erased. The media matrix today: the battlefield of the mind is digital. Social media platforms track our every click, building psychological profiles that can be used to influence behavior. Algorithms decide what we see, shaping our perception of reality. Political campaigns use micro-targeting to deliver tailored messages designed to bypass reason and trigger emotion. We call it personalization, but it is also manipulation. The new propaganda is not a poster on a wall. It is the invisible architecture of our feeds, the curated reality we mistake for truth. Ancient techniques of influence mind control is not only modern. Ancient cultures also developed techniques to shape consciousness. Chants, rituals, and symbols were used to induce altered states. Temples were designed with acoustics that amplified voices, creating awe and submission. Priests and shamans used fasting, drumming, and entheogens to guide visions. Were these spiritual practices or early forms of psychological engineering? The line is thin. What is clear is that power has always understood: to rule the body, one must first rule the mind. The pattern of control, from Spartan schools to colonial classrooms, from Goebbels' propaganda to MK-Ultra, from ancient temples to modern algorithms, the pattern is the same. Power seeks not only to command armies, but to command thought. To shape what people believe is possible, desirable, or inevitable, the most effective control is invisible. When people believe they are free, even as their choices are guided. When they mistake indoctrination for education, propaganda for truth, manipulation for desire, the invitation to wake up. To study the hidden history of mind control is not to fall into paranoia. It is to recognize the battlefield, to see the techniques, the patterns, the silences. To reclaim the right to think freely. The whisper of history is clear: the greatest prison is not made of walls, but of beliefs. And the greatest act of rebellion is to awaken to see through the illusions, to remember that thought itself can be free. Language as lost technology. We think of language as a tool for communication, words strung together to transmit ideas. But what if language was once more than that? What if it was a technology, a force capable of shaping reality itself? Across cultures, myths, and scriptures, the word is not just description, it is creation. And the deeper we look, the more we see that language may have been humanity's first and most powerful machine. The word as creation: in the beginning was the Word, says the Gospel of John. In Egypt, the gods spoke the world into existence. In India, the primordial sound dome vibrated the cosmos into being. Again and again, cultures describe language not as invention, but as origin. This is not metaphor, it is memory. Ancient peoples believed that sound carried power, that words were not labels, but forces. To speak was to shape, to name was to command. Language was not passive, it was active technology. The science of sacred sounds. In Sanskrit, every syllable is said to carry a vibration that resonates with the universe. Mantras are not prayers, but codes, frequencies that alter consciousness and reality. In Hebrew mysticism, the Kabbalah teaches that the letters of the Torah are not mere symbols, but living energies. To rearrange them is to reconfigure creation itself. Even in modern science, we glimpse echoes of this. Cymatics, the study of sound vibrations, shows how frequencies can shape matter into geometric patterns. What the ancients intuited, we now observe. Sound organizes chaos into form. Words, then, may be more than communication, they may be architecture. The Tower of Babel, a story of division. The biblical story of Babel tells of a time when humanity spoke one language. With it, they built a tower to reach the heavens. God, fearing their power, scattered their tongues, dividing them into many languages. Read literally, it is myth. Read symbolically, it is memory of a lost technology. A single, unified language capable of uniting humanity, capable of building the impossible, was shattered. The confusion of tongues was not punishment, but disarmament. Language was fragmented to weaken its power. Language and the brain. Modern neuroscience shows that language shapes thought. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests that the structure of a language influences how its speakers perceive reality. Cultures with no word for future experience time differently. Languages with dozens of words for snow perceive its nuances more vividly. If language shapes perception, then controlling language means controlling thought. Orwell understood this in 1984, where Newspeak reduced vocabulary to make rebellion unthinkable. The ancients may have known it too, that to master words is to master minds. The serpent of symbols. Symbols are the DNA of language. A single glyph can carry layers of meaning, resonating across cultures and centuries. The serpent, for example, appears in Sumer, Egypt, India, and Mesoamerica. Sometimes it is wisdom, sometimes danger, sometimes rebirth. Language is not only spoken, it is symbolic. Hieroglyphs, runes, sigils, all are technologies of compression, storing vast meaning in simple forms. To read them is to unlock codes, to forget them is to lose access to entire dimensions of thought. The lost languages. Dozens of ancient languages remain undeciphered. Linear of Crete, the Indus Valley script, the Rongorongo of Easter Island. Each is a locked vault of knowledge. What wisdom lies inside? What technologies, philosophies, or histories are trapped in silence? The loss of language is not just the loss of words, it is the loss of worlds. Each forgotten tongue is a collapsed universe, a vanished way of seeing reality. The pattern of forgetting, from Babel to Newspeak, from lost scripts to suppressed mantras, the pattern is clear. Language is power, and power fears competition. Unified languages are divided. Sacred sounds are dismissed as superstition. Symbols are reduced to decoration. The official narrative tells us language evolved from grunts to grammar. But the hidden history suggests the opposite, that language began as technology, as magic, as creation itself, and has been diluted ever since. The invitation of the word to rediscover language as technology is to reclaim its power. To speak with awareness, to chant with intention, to write with precision, is to remember that words are not neutral. They shape thought, they shape matter, they shape worlds. The hidden history of language whispers. Every word is a spell. Every sentence is an act of creation, and to remember this is to awaken the oldest technology of all, the power of the word. The hidden history of dreams and altered states. We are taught to see dreams as random images, the brain static at night. Altered states, whether through trance, ritual, or plants, are dismissed as hallucinations. But across cultures and centuries, dreams and altered states were not distractions. They were doorways, they were technologies of the mind, gateways to knowledge, prophecy, and transformation. The hidden history of dreams is the story of how humanity once navigated inner worlds with the same seriousness we now reserve for outer space. Dreams as prophecy. In ancient Mesopotamia, kings consulted dream interpreters before battles. In Egypt, dream temples were built where the sick slept, hoping for healing visions from the gods. The Bible is filled with dreams that change history. Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's visions of famine. Daniel decoding Nebuchadnezzar's nightmares. For the ancients, dreams were not illusions. They were messages, maps of the future, warnings from the divine. The modern dismissal of dreams as random neurons is a recent invention. For most of history, dreams were a parallel reality, as real as waking life. Altered states as initiation. Shamans across the world used drumming, chanting, fasting, and sacred plants to enter altered states. In these states, they claimed to travel to other realms, speak with spirits, and heal the sick. The Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece initiated participants with a secret drink, perhaps containing psychoactive substances that induced visions of death and rebirth. These were not recreational experiences, they were structured, sacred, transformative. To enter an altered state was to step into the architecture of the cosmos, to glimpse truths hidden from ordinary perception. The dream time of the Aboriginals in Australia. Aboriginal cultures speak of the dream time, a timeless realm where ancestors shaped the world. The dream time is not myth, but a living dimension, accessible through dreams, song, and ritual. To walk in dream time is to walk in the original blueprint of reality. This concept challenges the Western division between real and imagined. For the Aboriginals, the dream is not less real, it is more real. It is the foundation upon which waking life rests. The plants that speak from the Amazon to Siberia, sacred plants have been used to open the gates of perception. Ayahuasca, peyote, psilocybin mushrooms, iboglitch is a teacher, a doorway, a mirror. Indigenous shamans describe them not as drugs, but as beings with intelligence. Modern science now confirms that these substances can dissolve the ego, heal trauma, and rewire the brain. What was once dismissed as superstition is now studied in laboratories. Yet the ancients already knew plants can speak if we know how to listen. The suppression of inner technologies. Why were dreams and altered states marginalized? Because they empower the individual. A dream does not require a priest. A vision does not require a hierarchy. Inner technologies bypass external authority. That is why empires and religions often suppress them. The Eleusinian mysteries were outlawed. Shamanic practices were demonized. Sacred plants were banned. Dreams were reduced to fantasy. The gateways were closed, not because they were false, but because they were too powerful. The science of the subconscious, modern psychology, rediscovered what the ancients already knew. Freud saw dreams as the royal road to the unconscious. Jung saw them as messages from the collective unconscious, filled with archetypes and symbols. Today, neuroscience shows that dreams consolidate memory, solve problems, and even simulate future scenarios. The subconscious is not chaos, it is intelligence. And dreams are its language. To ignore them is to ignore half of our own mind. The invitation of the dream to reclaim the hidden history of dreams and altered states is to remember that consciousness is not limited to waking life, that the mind has landscapes as vast as any empire, as mysterious as any ocean. The ancients built temples for dreams. They sang to enter trance, they drank to see visions. They treated the inner world with reverence. We, in our modern arrogance, call it superstition, but perhaps it is we who are asleep. The whisper of history is clear. The dream is not escape, it is return. Return to the source, to the blueprint, to the forgotten gateways of consciousness. The burned science, knowledge destroyed by dogma. We often imagine science as a steady march of progress, each discovery building upon the last. But history tells a different story. Knowledge has not only been discovered, it has been destroyed. Libraries burned, manuscripts erased, thinkers silenced. The hidden history of science is not only about what we know, but about what we were forced to forget. The Library of Alexandria. The first great silence, the Library of Alexandria, was said to hold hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Astronomy from Babylon, medicine from Egypt, mathematics from Greece, philosophies from India. It was a crossroads of human knowledge. And then it was gone, burned, looted, scattered. Historians debate whether it was destroyed by Caesar's troops, by later emperors, or by religious zealots. But the result is the same. An ocean of knowledge evaporated. What cures, what inventions, what philosophies were lost in those flames, we will never know. The destruction of Alexandria was not just an accident. It was a warning. Knowledge is fragile, and power fears memory. Hypatia, the philosopher torn apart at the heart of Alexandria's intellectual life, was Hypatia, a mathematician and astronomer who refined instruments, taught heliocentrism, and embodied the spirit of inquiry. In 415 CE, she was dragged from her chariot by a mob, stripped, and murdered. Her writings were destroyed. Her death was not only the silencing of a woman, it was the silencing of a worldview. A worldview where reason, mathematics, and philosophy could coexist without dogma. Hypatia's fate shows how fragile science is when it collides with ideology. The burning of heretical books. Throughout the Middle Ages, countless manuscripts were destroyed in the name of orthodoxy. Works of alchemy, astronomy, and medicine were branded heresy. The Inquisition hunted not only people, but ideas. Entire traditions of knowledge, Gnostic gospels, Hermetic texts, pagan philosophies were erased. What survived often did so in secret, copied by hand, hidden in monasteries, whispered through secret societies. Science did not progress in a straight line. It survived in fragments, smuggled through the cracks of censorship. The case of Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno envisioned an infinite universe filled with countless suns and worlds. He saw divinity in all things, a cosmos without boundaries. For this, he was condemned. In 1600, he was burned alive in Rome. Bruno's execution was not about astronomy alone. It was about control. To imagine infinity was to imagine freedom. To imagine countless worlds was to dethrone the centrality of Earth and of those who claimed to rule it. Bruno's flames were the flames of fear, the suppression of alchemy. Alchemy is remembered as superstition, the futile attempt to turn lead into gold, but alchemy was more than that. It was a symbolic science, blending chemistry, psychology, and spirituality. Alchemists experimented with distillation, metallurgy, and medicine. They encoded their discoveries in symbols to protect them from persecution. Much of modern chemistry and pharmacology grew from alchemical roots. But the official narrative erased this lineage, branding alchemy as folly. The suppression of alchemy was not only about science, it was about erasing a worldview where matter and spirit were one. The lost knowledge of the Americas. When European conquerors arrived in the Americas, they did not only destroy cities, they destroyed libraries. The Maya codices, filled with astronomical calculations and histories, were burned by missionaries. Only for survive, the Inca quipus, knotted cords that recorded data, were dismissed as primitive and destroyed. The result was cultural amnesia. Civilizations that tracked Venus with precision, that built cities aligned with solstices, that mapped the stars were reduced to silence. The science of the Americas was not lost to time, it was burned. The pattern of destruction from Alexandria to the Inquisition, from Bruno to the Maya, the pattern repeats. Knowledge that empowers individuals, that challenges authority, that expands horizons is erased. Knowledge that serves power is preserved. Science is not only discovery, it is also survival. For every Newton, there are countless forgotten thinkers whose works were burned. For every theory we celebrate, there are others we will never know, because they were silenced before they could be written. The invitation to remember to study the burned science is to confront the fragility of knowledge. To recognize that progress is not inevitable, that memory can be erased, that entire worlds of thought can vanish in smoke. But it is also to recognize resilience. Fragments survive, ideas resurface. What is burned in one age can be rediscovered in another. The hidden history of science whispers, knowledge is fire. It can be extinguished, but it can also ignite again. The question is, will we guard the flame, or let it burn away once more? The hidden history of childhood and forgotten initiations. We imagine childhood as universal, innocence, play, and gradual preparation for adulthood. But childhood, as we know it, is a modern invention. In ancient times, children were not sheltered, they were initiated. They were taught secrets, trained in rituals, and guided through thresholds of transformation. The hidden history of childhood is the story of how societies once prepared the young not just to survive, but to awaken. Childhood in ancient tribes, among hunter-gatherer societies, children were not passive dependents. They learned by imitation, by immersion in the rhythms of the tribe. Boys and girls were taught to track animals, gather plants, read the stars, and interpret signs in nature. But beyond survival skills, they were initiated into myth. Around campfires, elders told stories that were not entertainment, but encoded maps of reality. Myths taught children who they were, where they came from, and what their role in the cosmos would be. Childhood was not a waiting room, it was apprenticeship in the sacred, rites of passage. Across cultures, adolescence was marked by initiation rituals. In Africa, young men were taken into the wilderness, tested through trials of endurance, and taught the secrets of the ancestors. In Native American traditions, vision quests sent youths alone into nature to fast, dream, and encounter their spirit guides. These rites were not cruelty, they were transformation. They marked the death of the child and the birth of the adult. Without them, a person was incomplete. Initiation was not optional. It was the bridge between innocence and responsibility, between ignorance and wisdom. The education of the Greeks in ancient Greece, education was not only about literacy, it was about shaping the soul. Boys studied music, poetry, and philosophy to harmonize their character. Gymnasiums trained the body, while mentors trained the mind, but there were also hidden initiations. The Eleusinian mysteries, open to those deemed worthy, revealed secrets of life, death, and rebirth. Participants emerged transformed, claiming they no longer feared death. Childhood in Greece was preparation not only for citizenship, but for transcendence. The bar and bat mitzvah in Jewish tradition, the passage into adulthood is marked by the bar or bat mitzvah. At 13, a child becomes responsible for the commandments, stepping into moral and spiritual accountability. The ritual is not only celebration, it is recognition that childhood ends and responsibility begins. This echoes a universal truth. Societies once marked the threshold between child and adult with ceremony, with meaning, with sacred weight. Today, that threshold is blurred, leaving many adrift between worlds. Eastern traditions of early training in India, children were once sent to live with gurus in forest hermitages, where they memorized scriptures, practiced meditation, and learned discipline. In Tibet, children identify as reincarnated lamas were trained from infancy in philosophy, ritual, and meditation. These were not ordinary educations, they were initiations into cosmic roles. Childhood was not a blank slate, it was a continuation of a soul's journey, recognized and cultivated by the community. The modern invention of childhood. In contrast, the modern West invented childhood as a protected stage of innocence. Factories and wars once consumed children as laborers and soldiers. Reformers responded by creating schools, laws, and institutions to shield them. Childhood became a bubble, separated from adult life. But in protecting children, we also stripped away initiation. We gave them safety, but not meaning. We taught them facts, but not wisdom. We extended adolescence indefinitely, leaving many unprepared for the responsibilities of adulthood. The forgotten initiations. What happens when a society forgets initiation? Children grow older, but not deeper. They reach adulthood without thresholds, without transformation, without a sense of belonging to something greater. They drift in perpetual adolescence, seeking initiation in gangs, addictions, or reckless risks. The ancients knew that without initiation, chaos follows. That is why every culture once had rites of passage. To forget them is to forget how to grow, the invitation to reclaim. To study the hidden history of childhood is to remember that education is not only about skills, it is about soul. It is about guiding the young through thresholds of transformation, giving them meaning, responsibility, and connection. The whisper of history is clear. Childhood is not a waiting room, it is a sacred journey. And to reclaim forgotten initiations is to reclaim the art of becoming fully human. The body as a secret map. We are taught to see the body as biology organs, muscles, bones, cells. A machine of flesh, explained by anatomy and chemistry. But across cultures and centuries, the body was never just matter. It was a map, a temple, a coded diagram of the cosmos itself. The hidden history of the body is the story of how humans once read themselves as scripture, as geometry, as living symbols of the universe. Chakras, the inner axis of energy in India. Yogic traditions describe the body as threaded by channels of energy, with 7 main centers called chakras. Each chakra corresponds not only to a physical region, but to states of consciousness, colors, sounds, and archetypes. The root chakra grounds us in survival. The crown chakra opens us to transcendence. Between them lies the entire spectrum of human experience. To awaken the chakras is to climb an inner ladder, a journey as real as any pilgrimage. Modern science dismisses chakras as metaphor, yet research into bioelectric fields, resonance, and psychosomatic health suggests the ancients may have intuited truths we are only beginning to rediscover. Chinese meridians, the rivers of Qi in Chinese medicine. The body is traversed by meridians, channels through which life energy, Qi, flows. Acupuncture, Tai Chi, and Qigong are based on balancing this flow. Illness is not random, it is blockage, imbalance, disharmony. The meridian system is not visible in anatomy textbooks. Yet countless patients testify to its efficacy. Western science struggles to explain it, but cannot deny its results. The body, in this view, is not a machine, but a landscape, rivers, currents, and tides of energy. The microcosm and the macrocosm. Hermetic philosophy taught, as above, so below, the human body mirrors the cosmos. The head is the heavens, the chest the air, the belly the earth, the feet the underworld. Medieval alchemists mapped planets onto organs, Mars to the blood, Venus to the kidneys, Saturn to the bones. The zodiac was not only in the sky, it was inscribed on the body. Each sign ruled a region, each planet a function. To heal the body was to align it with the stars. The body was not separate from the universe, it was its reflection. The Kabbalistic tree of life in Jewish mysticism, the tree of life is both a map of creation and a map of the body. The 10 Sephirot correspond to aspects of divinity, but also two parts of the human form. The tree is drawn as a figure, crown at the head, foundation at the genitals, kingdom at the feet. To meditate on the tree is to align the self with the divine structure of reality. The body becomes a ladder between heaven and earth, a living diagram of creation. The brain as a temple. Even in modern science, echoes of sacred mapping remain. The brain is divided into hemispheres left and right, logic and intuition. The pineal gland, hidden deep within, has long been called the third eye. Descartes called it the seat of the soul. Mystics across cultures spoke of an inner eye, a point of vision beyond ordinary sight. Today, we know the pineal gland regulates circadian rhythms and produces melatonin. But could it also be a gateway to altered states, as the ancients believed? The line between biology and mysticism blurs. The body as temple. In Christianity, the body is called the temple of the Holy Spirit. In Buddhism, the body is the vehicle of enlightenment. In shamanism, the body is the drum, the bridge to other worlds. Every tradition agrees, the body is not an obstacle to spirit, it is its vessel. To neglect the body is to neglect the map, to honor it is to walk the path. The forgotten cartography. Why did modernity strip the body of its sacred maps? Because a body that is only flesh is easier to control. A body that is only machine can be exploited, medicated, and disciplined. But a body that is temple, cosmos, and scripture, that body is free. The hidden history of the body is not superstition, it is memory. Memory of a time when humans read themselves as part of the universe, when every breath was cosmic, every heartbeat divine. The invitation of the body. To reclaim the body as a map is to remember that we are not separate from the cosmos. That our organs, energies, and symbols are reflections of greater patterns. That healing is not only chemical, is alignment. The whisper of history is clear. The body is not just matter. It is meaning, it is geometry, it is the forgotten scripture written in flesh. And to read it is to remember who we are. The sacred animals and their hidden symbolism. We are taught to see animals as biology, species, habitats, survival strategies. But for most of human history, animals were not only creatures, they were symbols, teachers, messengers. They embodied forces of nature, archetypes of the psyche, and secrets of the cosmos. The hidden history of sacred animals is the story of how humanity once read the natural world as scripture and how those meanings were later buried. The serpent, wisdom and fear. Few symbols are as universal as the serpent. In Mesopotamia, it was Ningishita, guardian of the underworld. In Egypt, the cobra crowned the pharaoh's brow as a sign of divine authority. In India, the naga was both protector and teacher. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl the feathered serpent was a god of knowledge and renewal. Yet in the Bible, the serpent becomes the deceiver, the tempter, the enemy. Why? Because serpents embody transformation. They shed their skin, symbolizing rebirth. They move between earth and water, bridging worlds. To honor the serpent is to honor change, wisdom, and hidden power. To demonize it is to suppress those forces. The eagle, the eye of the sky. The eagle soars higher than any bird, its vision piercing, its flight majestic. For the Romans, it was the standard of the legions, symbol of empire. For Native Americans, the eagle was a messenger between humans and the Great Spirit. In Norse myth, an eagle sits atop Yggdrasil, the world tree, seeing all. The eagle is not just a predator, it is perspective. To see from above, to rise beyond the immediate, to grasp the whole. That is why empires claim it, and why shamans honor it. The eagle is the eye of the sky, the vision of power, the jaguar, lord of the night. In Mesoamerica, the jaguar was revered as the lord of the underworld, master of night and shadow. The Olmecs carved jaguar-human hybrids, symbols of shamanic transformation. The Maya saw the jaguar as the sun traveling through the underworld at night, reborn each dawn. The jaguar is stealth, strength, and mystery. To wear its skin was to embody its power. To dream of it was to cross into other realms. The jaguar reminds us that darkness is not only fear, it is initiation. The raven, trickster, and prophet. In Norse mythology, Odin's ravens Hugin and Muninthot and memory fly across the world, bringing him knowledge. In Native American traditions, Raven is the trickster, the creator, the one who brings light by stealing it from the gods. In Celtic lore, ravens circle battlefields, omens of death and transformation. The raven is paradox. It is death and rebirth, trickery and wisdom, shadow and light. To follow the raven is to follow the path of contradiction, where truth hides in riddles. The bull, strength and sacrifice. From the caves of Lascaux to the temples of Crete, the bull has been a symbol of raw power. In Mesopotamia, the bull of heaven was unleashed by the gods. In Minoan Crete, youths leapt over bulls in sacred rituals. In India, Nandi the bull is the mount of Shiva, guardian of temples. The bull is fertility, force, and sacrifice. Its blood nourished the earth, its strength plowed the fields. To honor the bull was to honor life itself, to kill it was to release its power. The bull is the eternal tension between creation and destruction. The owl, keeper of the night, the owl sees in darkness. In Greece, it was sacred to Athena, goddess of wisdom. In Native American traditions, it was a messenger of death. In Africa, it was feared as a witch's companion. The owl embodies hidden sight. It sees what others cannot. It is wisdom, but also taboo. To honor the owl is to honor the knowledge that comes from silence, from shadow, from the night. The elephant, memory and majesty. In India, the elephant-headed god Ganesha removes obstacles and brings fortune. In Africa, elephants are symbols of memory, family, and endurance. In Buddhism, the white elephant is a sign of sacred birth. The elephant is not only strength, it is patience, memory, and community. Its presence is monumental, its wisdom ancestral. To follow the elephant is to walk slowly, but never forget. The pattern of the sacred bestiary from serpent to eagle, jaguar to raven, bull to owl, elephant to countless others, the pattern is clear. Animals were never just animals. They were archetypes. They were mirrors of human consciousness, embodiments of cosmic forces. The modern world reduces them to biology, to resources, to mascots. But the ancients knew, to see an animal is to see a symbol, to kill one is to kill a mystery. To honor one is to honor the universe itself, the invitation of the animal. To reclaim the sacred animals is to remember that we are not separate from nature. That every creature is a teacher, every species a symbol, every encounter a message. The hidden history of animals whispers, the world is alive with meaning. The serpent teaches transformation. The eagle teaches vision. The jaguar teaches courage. The raven teaches paradox. The bull teaches sacrifice. The owl teaches hidden sight. The elephant teaches memory, and together, they remind us, the earth itself is a bestiary of wisdom, waiting to be read. The cycles of history, patterns that repeat. We are taught to see history as progress, a straight line from primitive caves to modern skyscrapers, from superstition to science, from chaos to order. But beneath the surface of dates and events lies another rhythm. Civilizations rise, flourish, collapse, and vanish only for others to follow the same path. The hidden history of humanity is not linear, it is cyclical. And the cycles whisper a warning. What has happened before will happen again. The rise and fall of empires. Rome believed it was eternal. So did Egypt, so did China's dynasties, so did the empires of Spain and Britain. Each built monuments, laws, and armies. Each believed they had transcended time, and yet each fell. Historians like Ibn Khaldun and Oswald Spengler saw the pattern clearly. Civilizations are like living beings. They are born, they grow, they age, and they die. Their lifespans may stretch centuries, but the rhythm is the same. Prosperity breeds complacency. Power breeds corruption. Collapse follows. The cycle is not accident, it is law. The yugas of India. In Hindu cosmology, time is divided into vast cycles called yugas. The Satya Yuga is the golden age of truth. The Treta Yuga brings decline. The Dvapara Yuga sees further corruption. And the Kali Yuga, the age we are said to inhabit, is an age of darkness, ignorance, and decay. But the yugas are not despair, they are cycles. After the darkness, the golden age returns. Time is not a line, but a wheel. Humanity forgets, falls, remembers, and rises again. The yugas remind us that decline is not the end, it is the turning of the wheel. The Ouroboros, the serpent of time, the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, appears in Egypt, Greece, and alchemy. It is the symbol of eternal return. Time devours itself, only to be reborn. Creation and destruction are not opposites, they are phases of the same cycle. The ancients did not fear collapse, they saw it as renewal. The forest burns, and new life emerges, the empire falls, and new cultures rise. The Ouroboros teaches that endings are beginnings in disguise, the forgotten warnings. Again and again, civilizations left warnings for the future. The Maya carved calendars that tracked cycles of time. The Hopi spoke of worlds destroyed by fire, ice, and flood. The Stoics taught that history repeats in great conflagrations, where the cosmos itself is reborn. But modernity ignores these warnings. We believe we are unique, that our technology exempts us from the cycle. We call ourselves advanced, forgetting that every empire once believed the same. The ruins of the past are not just relics, they are mirrors. The cycle within the individual, the cycles of history, are not only collective. They are personal. Each life mirrors the rise and fall of civilizations. Childhood is the golden age of innocence, youth is expansion and conquest. Adulthood is consolidation. Old age is decline, death is collapse, and yet, birth returns. The ancients saw no separation between microcosm and macrocosm. The cycles of the cosmos, the cycles of empires, the cycles of the self, all are reflections of the same law. To understand one is to understand all. The danger of forgetting. Why do civilizations repeat mistakes? Because they forget. Prosperity erases memory of struggle. Power erases humility. Each generation believes it is different, that it has transcended the cycle. And so the wheel turns again. The hidden history of cycles is not prophecy, it is pattern. To ignore it is to be trapped by it. To remember it is to prepare. The question is not whether collapse will come. The question is how we will face it. The invitation of the cycle to see history as cyclical is not despair, it is liberation. It means that decline is not the end, but transformation. That collapse is not failure, but renewal. That we are not trapped in linear doom, but participants in eternal return. The whisper of history is clear. We are not the first. We will not be the last. The wheel turns, the serpent devours, the empire falls, the seed sprouts. To remember the cycle is to walk with wisdom. To forget it is to be devoured by it. Art is a hidden code. We are taught to see art as beauty, decoration, or expression. Museums present paintings as aesthetic objects, cathedrals as architecture, sculptures as craft. But for most of history, art was not only art, it was code. It was a language of symbols, a system of hidden meanings designed to transmit knowledge across generations. The hidden history of art is the story of how images became vaults of secrets and how those secrets still whisper from the walls. The cave paintings, portals, not pictures in the caves of Lascaux and Chauvet. Animals are painted with astonishing precision. Horses gallop, bison charge, lions stalk. Archaeologists call them hunting magic or primitive art, but what if they were more? Some researchers suggest the caves were not galleries but sanctuaries. The paintings align with constellations, turning animals into star maps. The flicker of torchlight made them move, transforming walls into living visions. These were not decorations, they were portals. The first codes of art were cosmic. The architecture of secrets, cathedrals, temples, and mosques are not only buildings. They are books written in stone. Gothic cathedrals align with solstices, their stained glass encoding biblical allegories and alchemical symbols. The pyramids of Egypt are not only tombs, they are astronomical instruments, aligned with Orion and Sirius. Architecture is frozen music, geometry turned sacred. Every arch, every column, every proportion carries meaning. To walk through these spaces is to walk through a code, one that modern eyes often fail to read. Renaissance paintings, layers of meaning. The Renaissance celebrated realism, but beneath the realism lay riddles. Botticelli's Primavera is not only a scene of myth, it is an allegory of cosmic cycles, fertility, and transformation. Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper hides geometric patterns, astrological alignments, and perhaps even musical notes encoded in bread and hands. Artists were not only painters, they were initiates. Their patrons demanded beauty, but they delivered secrets. To decode Renaissance art is to uncover a parallel history of hidden knowledge. Alchemical imagery, the science of symbols. Alchemy, the precursor of chemistry, encoded its teachings in images. The Ouroboros serpent, the hermaphrodite, the philosopher's stone, all were symbols of transformation, both material and spiritual. Alchemical manuscripts are filled with bizarre illustrations, kings dissolving, suns and moons marrying, vessels exploding. These were not fantasies. They were coded instructions designed to protect knowledge from persecution. To the uninitiated, nonsense. To the initiate, a manual of transformation. Art was encryption. Music as geometry, even music carried hidden codes. Pythagoras taught that harmony was mathematics made audible. Gregorian chants were not only prayers, they were sonic technologies designed to alter consciousness. In India, ragas were linked to times of day, seasons, and states of mind. Sound was not entertainment, it was architecture of the soul. To sing, to play, to listen was to participate in cosmic order. Music was art, but also medicine, mathematics, and magic, the suppression of symbolic literacy. Why do we no longer read art as code? Because symbolic literacy was suppressed. The Reformation stripped churches of imagery. The Enlightenment dismissed symbols as superstition. Modernity reduced art to aesthetics, stripping it of its initiatory function, but the symbols remain. The serpent, the rose, the cross, the circle, the labyrinth, they still whisper. We have forgotten the language, but the code is still there, waiting to be read. The pattern of hidden codes from cave walls to cathedrals, from alchemy to music, the pattern is clear. Art was never only art, it was a vessel of knowledge, a way to transmit truths too dangerous or too subtle for words. When power censored texts, symbols survived. When memory was erased, images endured. Art is the memory of humanity, encrypted in beauty. The invitation of the symbol to reclaim art as code is to awaken symbolic literacy. To see beyond surface, to read the hidden language of images, to recognize that every painting, every building, every song is a message. The hidden history of art whispers, beauty is camouflage. Behind every brushstroke, every note, every stone lies a secret. And to see it is to remember that art is not only expression, it is initiation. The non-human beings of ancient memory history tells us that humanity has always been alone. That myths of gods, spirits, and otherworldly beings are simply imagination. But across cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, we find the same stories, beings who came from the sky, from the sea, from the stars. They taught, they ruled, they interbred, they vanished. The hidden history of non-human beings is not about fantasy, it is about memory, memory of encounters we no longer dare to name. The Anunnaki of Sumer, the Sumerians, the first known civilization, wrote of the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. They described them not as abstract gods, but as rulers with names, families, and tasks. They taught agriculture, astronomy, and law. They created humanity itself, according to the texts, by mixing their essence with that of earthly beings. Were the Anunnaki metaphors for natural forces? Or were they memories of visitors, preserved in clay tablets? The question remains unanswered, but the detail of their accounts is unsettling. They were not worshipping, they were recording. The Namo of the Dogon in Mali. The Dogon people tell of the Namo, amphibious beings who descended from the sky in a spinning vessel. The Namo taught them astronomy, including the existence of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye and only confirmed by modern telescopes in the 20th century. How could a pre-technological culture know this? Anthropologists dismiss it as coincidence or contamination. But the Dogon insist the Namo were real, and they will return. Their story is not myth, it is memory. The Nephilim of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, we read of the sons of God who descended to earth and took human wives, producing giants called Nephilim. These hybrids were said to be mighty, renowned, and feared. Later texts describe them as corrupt, leading to the flood that wiped them away. The Nephilim echo stories from other cultures, demigods in Greece, titans in myth, hybrid rulers in Egypt, always the same pattern, beings from beyond mixing with humans, producing something more, something dangerous. Were these myths or censored history? Quetzalcoatl and the feathered serpents in Mesoamerica. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was said to have descended from the sky, bringing knowledge of agriculture, astronomy, and morality. He was depicted as both man and serpent, both ruler and teacher. The Maya, Aztec, and Toltec all remembered him. Some said he left, promising to return. When the Spanish arrived, some believed they were his return, an error that shaped conquest itself. But beneath the myth lies a question: who is Quetzalcoatl? A god, a man, or a visitor remembered as both? Hybrids and chimeras. Ancient myths are filled with hybrids, centaurs, mermaids, sphinxes, minotaurs. Modern readers dismiss them as fantasy, but what if they were memories of genetic experiments? The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki creating humans through mixing. Egyptian gods were depicted with animal heads and human bodies. Were these symbols of archetypes or literal memories of beings who were not fully human? The line between myth and memory blurs. And the persistence of hybrids across cultures suggests something more than imagination. The Sky People. From the Hopi of North America to the Zulu of South Africa, indigenous traditions speak of Sky People who descended to teach, to rule, or to intermarry. The details differ, but the pattern is the same. Humanity was not alone. Encounters shaped culture, technology, and myth. Modernity dismisses these as legends, but why do they repeat across continents, across millennia? Why do cultures with no contact tell the same story? Perhaps because they are remembering the same encounters, filtered through different languages. The pattern of non-human memory, the Anunnaki, the Namo, the Nephilim, Quetzalcoatl, the hybrids, the Sky People. Different names, same pattern. Beings from beyond arrive. They teach, they rule, they interbreed. They are remembered as gods, demons, or teachers. Then they vanish. The official narrative calls this myth. But the consistency across cultures suggests something deeper. Perhaps humanity has always lived in contact with others. Perhaps we are not the beginning, but the continuation of a larger story, the invitation to remember. To explore the hidden history of non-human beings is not to abandon reason, it is to expand it. To recognize that myths may be memories, that symbols may be records, that humanity's story may not be solitary. The future as a mirror of the past. We are taught to see the future as open, undefined, a blank canvas waiting for human will. But across cultures, prophets, mystics, and philosophers have insisted otherwise. They tell us the future is not empty, it is patterned. It is a mirror of the past, a cycle that repeats, a destiny already written in the stars. The hidden history of prophecy is not about fortune-telling, it is about memory. Memory of rhythms that bind past, present, and future into one. Ancient prophecies. The Maya carved calendars that track not only days, but cosmic cycles. Their end in 2012 was not apocalypse, but transition, a turning of the wheel. The Hopi spoke of worlds destroyed by fire, ice, and flood, warning that the fourth world, the one we inhabit, would also end if balance was lost. In India, the Yugas describe vast epochs of rise and decline, with the Kali Yuga, an age of darkness and confusion, said to be our present. In Greece, the Oracle of Delphi spoke in riddles, her visions shaping wars and empires. These prophecies were not random predictions. They were attempts to read the cycles of time, to glimpse the mirror of tomorrow in the patterns of yesterday. Astrology, as cosmic clock astrology, is dismissed today as superstition. Yet for millennia, it was the science of time. Kings consulted astrologers before battles. Empires aligned their foundations with the stars. The heavens were not decoration, they were a clock. The precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle, was known to ancient astronomers. They divided it into ages: the age of Taurus, the age of Aries, the age of Pisces, and soon, the age of Aquarius. Each age brought shifts in culture, religion, and consciousness. If the stars are a clock, then the future is not random. It is rhythm, and we are dancers who have forgotten the music. The visionaries have collapsed throughout history. Visionaries have warned of collapse. The Roman historian Polybius described the cycle of governments: monarchy to tyranny, aristocracy to oligarchy, democracy to mob rule, and back again. Ibn Khaldun saw civilizations rise with discipline and fall with decadence. Modern prophets echo the same. Oswald Spengler wrote of the decline of the West. Arnold Toynbee described civilizations failing when they could no longer respond creatively to challenges. The warnings are clear. The future repeats the past. Collapse is not anomaly, is inevitability. Forgotten technologies of foresight, dreams, visions, and altered states were once tools of prophecy. Shamans entered trance to glimpse the future. Oracles inhaled vapors, priests read entrails, seers cast bones, to modernize superstition. But perhaps these were technologies of intuition, ways of accessing patterns beyond ordinary perception. Even today, science acknowledges precognition in subtle forms. The subconscious anticipates, the body reacts before the mind knows. Prophecy may not be magic, it may be memory of cycles encoded in us. The future is memory. What if the future is not unknown, but remembered? The philosopher Nietzsche spoke of the eternal recurrence, that everything repeats endlessly. Quantum theories suggest time may not be linear, but layered. Mystics across cultures insist the future already exists, waiting to be recalled. Prophecy, then, is not prediction. It is recognition. To see the future is to remember it. To dream of tomorrow is to recall yesterday's cycle. The danger of forgetting. Why do we dismiss prophecy? Because it undermines the illusion of control. If the future is patterned, then progress is not guaranteed. If collapse is cyclical, then our empires are not eternal. To forget prophecy is to walk blind into repetition. The hidden history of the future is not about fear, it is about humility. To remember that we are not exempt from the cycles. That our skyscrapers are no more permanent than pyramids. That our technologies are no more eternal than temples. The danger is not prophecy, the danger is forgetting it. The invitation of the mirror to see the future as a mirror of the past is to awaken. To recognize the cycles, to read the patterns, to prepare for the turning of the wheel. It is not fatalism, it is wisdom. The forest burns, but life returns. The empire falls, but cultures rise. The wheel turns, and we turn with it. The whisper of history is clear. The future is not blank, it is memory, waiting to be remembered. And those who learn to read the mirror will not be surprised when tomorrow arrives. We imagine technology as a straight ascent, fire, wheel, steam, electricity, digital. But what if the future is not invention, but remembrance? What if the technologies of tomorrow are not new, but rediscovered fragments of knowledge buried in myth, suppressed by dogma, or hidden in plain sight? The hidden history of technology suggests that humanity's greatest breakthroughs may already have been achieved, lost, and are waiting to return. Ancient machines. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a Greek shipwreck, is a 2,000-year-old analog computer. The Baghdad battery, a clay jar with copper and iron, can generate electricity. The precision stonework of Puma Punku in Bolivia suggests tools we cannot replicate easily today. These are not anomalies, they are echoes. They whisper that advanced engineering existed long before our textbooks allow. If such machines existed once, could they exist again? Or are we unknowingly reinventing what was already known? The technology of flight. The Vedic texts of India describe Vimanas, flying machines powered by mercury and heat. Mesoamerican carvings depict figures seated in what look like spacecraft. Legends of flying shields, fiery chariots, and skyboats appear across cultures. Modern aviation is barely a century old, but what if flight is not our invention, but our rediscovery? What if the skies were once filled with machines we now call myth? Tomorrow's aerospace breakthroughs may be yesterday's memories. Sound as power across the world. Myths describe sound as a force that shapes matter. The walls of Jericho fell to trumpets. Egyptian priests spoke of levitating stones with chants. Tibetan monks use overtone chanting to vibrate the body into altered states. Modern science confirms that sound can move matter. Cymatics creates patterns in sand. Ultrasound can levitate droplets. What if ancient builders used sound to move megaliths, to heal bodies, to alter consciousness? If so, the future of medicine and engineering may lie in rediscovering the lost science of vibration, free energy, and suppressed inventions. Nikola Tesla dreamed of wireless energy, of tapping into the Earth's natural frequencies to power the world. His Warden Cliff Tower was dismantled, his note seized. Was it impractical or too disruptive to the powers that profit from scarcity? Throughout history, inventors have claimed breakthroughs in free energy, anti-gravity, or perpetual motion, only to be silenced, ridiculed, or erased. The pattern suggests not only discovery, but suppression. The technologies of tomorrow may already exist, hidden not by impossibility, but by design. The biology of light. Ancient traditions spoke of the body as luminous. The aura in mysticism, the light body in esotericism, the halo in religious art. Modern science now studies biophotons, tiny particles of light emitted by living cells. What if consciousness itself is linked to light? What if healing, memory, and even thought are electromagnetic phenomena we barely understand? The future of biology may not be chemistry, it may be light. And the ancients may have known it all along, the pattern of rediscovery, the Antikythera mechanism, the Vimanas, the sound technologies, Tesla's visions, the luminous body all point to the same pattern. Humanity discovers, forgets, rediscovers. Knowledge rises, collapses, and returns. The technologies of tomorrow are not linear progress, they are cyclical memory. The official narrative tells us we are pioneers. But perhaps we are archaeologists of our own forgotten future. The invitation of tomorrow to imagine the future is to remember the past. To see that what we call innovation may be restoration. That the machines of tomorrow may be the myths of yesterday. That the technologies we dream of, free energy, flight beyond the stars, healing with sound and light, may already be within reach if we dare to remember. The whisper of history is clear. The future is not ahead, it is behind us, waiting to be recalled. And those who learn to remember will build the tomorrow that was always meant to be. The right to remember history, as we are taught, is a story of progress. A straight line from caves to cities, from ignorance to enlightenment, from superstition to science. But after walking through the shadows of forgotten civilizations, suppressed knowledge, erased rebels, hidden codes, and silenced voices, another truth emerges. History is not a line. It is a labyrinth, and within that labyrinth, the greatest secret is not what we know, it is what we are forbidden to remember. The architecture of forgetting, we have seen the pattern. Civilizations that contradict the official story are buried. Technologies that appear too early are dismissed. Prophets who warn of cycles are ignored. Rebels who speak truth are erased. Religions are edited. Art is coded. Animals are reduced to biology. The body is stripped of its sacred maps. Forgetting is not accident, it is architecture. It is the deliberate shaping of memory to serve power. To control the past is to control the present. To control the present is to control the future. This is the hidden empire that never falls, the empire of forgetting, the cost of silence. What is lost when knowledge is burned, when voices are silenced, when myths are dismissed? Not only facts, not only data, what is lost is possibility. The possibility of other ways of living, of thinking, of being. The possibility that humanity is more than consumer and machine, more than empire and collapse. The cost of silence is imagination, and without imagination, the future shrinks. We inherit not the vastness of human memory, but the narrow corridor of official history. The return of memory, but forgetting is never complete. Fragments survive, a glyph on a broken tablet. A myth whispered by elders, a symbol carved in stone. A dream that feels older than the dreamer. These fragments are seeds, and seeds wait. Every rediscovery, Göbekli Tepe, the Antikythera mechanism, the Gnostic Gospels, the Maya codices, is a crack in the wall of forgetting. Each fragment reminds us that memory cannot be erased, only hidden, and that to remember is to rebel. The right to remember, the greatest right, is not freedom of speech. It is freedom of memory, the right to remember what was erased, the right to reclaim what was silenced. The right to see beyond the official story, to remember, is dangerous. It destabilizes empires, religions, and systems. It awakens individuals, it restores imagination. That is why memory is suppressed, and that is why remembering is the most radical act. The invitation, this journey through hidden history, is not about conspiracy, it is about consciousness. It is about seeing the patterns, the silences, the erasures, and choosing to remember. The invitation is simple: look again, at myths, at ruins, at symbols, at dreams. Read them not as fantasy, but as memory. Ask not only what happened, but what was forgotten. And in that act, you reclaim your place in the labyrinth of history, the final whisper. The whisper of history is clear. We are not the first, we will not be the last. The wheel turns. The serpent devours, the empire falls, the seed sprouts. And through it all, memory waits, waiting for us to break the spell of forgetting. Waiting for us to claim the right to remember. Waiting for us to awaken to the truth that history is not only what we are told, is what we dare to recall.